Eagle Community Television presents Community Connection with your host, Mike Cooper.
Hello and welcome again to Community Connection from Eagle Community Television. Thanks for watching, and thanks to our producer, Jeff Durall. We're at the offices of Randy Clinkscales, elder care attorney at the Clinkscales Elder Law Practice at 2604 General Hayes Road. Wanted to visit with Randy about elder care, and since he is one of the pioneers, I think we could safely say, in this particular practice, certainly in western Kansas, Randy, to tell us a little bit more about elder care law. What is it, first of all?
Well, Mike, elder care law is really a area developed by an organization called the National Academy of Elder Law Attorneys, and I'm a member of that. In fact, I was president of the Kansas chapter for a couple years, but it's really an area of law that's devoted to seniors and some of the unique issues that seniors face. It's actually also now encompasses special needs planning. So it's kind of a broad area, but very centrally focused on seniors and the programs and unique issues that they run into, such as Medicare, Medicaid, VA benefits, health insurance issues, those types of things.
When we first talked about this on the Coming of Age program with Harry Watts several years ago, you were somewhat alone in the particular focus of elder law practice. What's the situation now?
It's still a very unique practice area. In western Kansas, in fact, Mike, I think when I talked to you before, there were a couple of attorneys in Dodge City that were kind of playing around with this area. But pretty much I'm the only one now. I don't think that they're more into estate planning. So pretty much in the western half of the state, and I'm talking about from Salina westward, we're the only firm that focuses on elder care.
But apparently the interest is growing because there's a seminar this week in Lindsborg that you're participating in that's going to be attended by quite a number of people.
Yeah, I've been a little bit surprised. Actually, there's a long-term care facility there that asked us to come out. And so we're doing a seminar at a library. And normally we hope for 30 or 40 people at these types of events. We've been a little bit overwhelmed. We're up to about 140 people, 2 sessions of 70 each. So we're going to have our hands full that day. But we're very excited. So it's just interesting that the message resonates so strongly with people concerned about how to prepare for long-term care, how to get their affairs in order, how to get their ducks in a row, if you will, as we grow older. And Mike, when I talk about growing older, more and more of my clients, and I think when I talked to you originally, a lot of my clients were in their 70s and 80s and 90s. And in fact, I just had a client the other day that hired me that was 100.
Wow.
And she just doesn't know how much longer she can live at home. So what a great person.
I think that's pretty remarkable in itself, Randy.
Exactly. But what's kind of evolved since then is now we're seeing a lot more 70 and 60s and 50-year-olds that have had someone that has been in some type of long-term care, and so they want to be more proactive and realize that they do need to get stuff done.
Well, and this helps, I think, with the younger generation, if you will, the children, even the grandchildren, perhaps, to an extent, Randy.
Sure, it does. And from a personal side, my wife is now overseeing the care of her mother, who's down in Wichita in a nursing home. And, we also have a child living at home. So we're kind of what they call that sandwich generation. And so, I think we're becoming a lot more aware. Hopefully, we're becoming more aware. And again, I think the turnout for Lindsborg is probably indicative of maybe the concerns that people have.
Well, and there's a lot of confusion involved because there's so many terms. trusts, living wills, power of attorney, executor of the estate, estate planning, all of those types of things. There's a lot of things out there, a lot of trees out in the forest.
Yeah, there are, and I think a lot of times when I, like in Lynchburg, or even when people come into my office, sometimes I just have to write down the different tools that are available out there because they are confusing because of the terms that are being used. The other side of it, and I was telling you earlier, is unfortunately there's a lot of law that's practiced in the coffee shops. And so there's a lot of confusion when people come in here. I had a client last week tell me his estate was not going to be probated because he has a will. And because he does have a will, there will be a probate. And so you get that, and I understand, I understand how these terms can get confused.
Now, you entered in this elder law practice from personal experience yourself. You mentioned Barb's mother, your grandmother, I believe, and that's where the questions started to come for your family.
Exactly. I began taking care of my grandmother in 2001, and it was just kind of interesting that at the same time I did that, I'd been practicing about 20-something years at that point. But all of a sudden I had clients coming to me and asking me the same questions that my grandmother was asking of me. And one of the initial, if you will, bleeding points was how to pay for care. But what I found, the big picture was, how can I stay at home? And how can I be safe? Or in my case, my concern was, how can I let my grandmother be at home yet be safe? And that was a real concern that I had. And so in 2004, in May 1st of 2004, we really transitioned our practice at that time. And we literally started all over. And our focus then was solely on elder care issues. It has been since then.
And certainly there are a couple of things involved here. You want, as you say, your relative to be safe. At the same time, you want to know that they're secure. And at the same time, you want to let them have whatever independence they can have.
Yeah, and I think the key when I talk to my grandmother, or even with the families I work with, is how can we be independent but safe? And sometimes that's a sliding scale.
Can you give us kind of an overview, Randy, of what families need to know, particularly children who might have questions about their parents?
Well, I think the very first thing, if I were overseeing a parent, like I did with my grandmother, is to get a good handle on what type of care needs that person has. And can they stay independent? Can they continue to drive? Are they taking their medications? My grandmother was telling me she was taking her medications okay. And then I would go to see her and I would vacuum around her chair and I'd hear all these little things clicking in the vacuum cleaner. Well, it was her pills that she was dropping. So obviously she wasn't getting
And
them.
she wasn't aware of it.
And she wasn't aware of it.
Her overt action.
No, her eyesight was poor, and so that was an issue. So I think that's a starting point. The second point that I would want to work with the family is to find out what type of documentation that they have in place for their parent or their spouse or whatever. And specifically, the very first thing when a client comes into my office is I want to be sure they have a financial and healthcare power of attorney that really reflects their wishes. And so it's not a pull off the internet type of thing. It's, in Kansas we have 14 optional powers that are not in a power of attorney unless you specifically include them in there. And they're not right or wrong powers. They're powers that you need to consider, like gifting. Do you want your agent to be able to gift your property? again, that's not a right or wrong answer. It's just a discussion that we need to have. And if they can gift, how much can they gift? And who can they gift to?
And sometimes these powers of attorney do not necessarily have to be family members. They can be people that are aware that they're going to be a power of attorney. And sometimes it's better, perhaps, I'm sure that you can speak from experience, that family members not be involved as powers of attorney.
Yeah, that's true. And I don't know why that's becoming more and more true. But, sometimes making a family member a power of attorney agent is uncomfortable for that person. It may be uncomfortable for other family members. And so, we want to have that discussion. For other people, they're very comfortable with that, with appointing a relative. But it's a discussion that you need to have, and you need to have that discussion with someone who can give you some objective feedback.
What is the ultimate goal, Randy, of elder care law? When you talk with families, what do you want as the ultimate outcome?
For me, Mike, if I have somebody come in here and maybe they've got early Alzheimer's, I want to have a real heart-to-heart discussion with them about what their goals are. And so if their goal is to try to stay at home as long as possible, then I want to know that, and I want to know to what extent they're willing to go to make that happen. I want to know about their end-of-life decisions. I want to know who they want to act for them when they cannot speak. And I really want to know that, because I want to, when I'm working with a client, we're on a journey. And most of my clients, we represent them for the rest of their lives. And so we enter into a journey with them. And I want to know that 5 years from now, when they cannot speak, that I'm fulfilling their wishes. And so that I can give guidance to the family about, this is what this person told me, this is what they want. I always tell my clients, I don't care if you're a kid, a cousin, or whatever, the elderly person is my client. And their wishes are always the controlling factor in what we do. Now, there's a point when we have to be aware that a person's wishes may not be able to be carried out. It's called the promise. I promise I'll never put you in a nursing home. Sometimes that's not realistic. Sometimes there's no other alternative.
Thanks for the insights again, Randy. It's very informative to visit with elder care attorney Randy Clinkscales from the Clinkscales Elder Law Practice on Community Connection. Thanks for watching.